now tuned in to the cold, hard truth. Cayman's #1 hard-hitting live podcast show, where we feature some straightforward conversations on political, social, and celebrity news and all things happening in the Cayman Islands and around the world. This show was created to give the people a voice and a means of being involved and informed without any filters. Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. We bring you the tea, piping hot, so grab your favorite beverage and join the conversation via WhatsApp at 324-1612. Email tips at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Now, here's your host, Sandy Hill, broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands.
Oh, land of soft, fresh breeze. All right. Good morning, folks. Thank you so much for your patience. Tech issues this morning. I keep telling my husband this computer is giving me all of the signs that say we need to retire. We need to retire this computer. Anyway, I just messaged him with a very firm message that said, honey, we need to get on it. No sound. Are you sure? Try refreshing. Try refreshing, Zika. You should have sound. I'm going to double check it in a second. Hold on one second, folks. Good morning. Good morning, Miss Corrine. Can anybody else hear me? I keep telling my husband. Yep, we've got sound. We have audio. So, yes, thank you guys so much for tuning in. So, Marlon, Mr. IT man, your wife needs a new computer. End of story. That's all I need to say on that. Come on now. I feel like I'm when you get to that point where you need an upgrade, you need to do something. You're kind of like, don't wait until it becomes absolutely critical, right? But you guys know how it goes. I was talking to a guy the other day and he said to me, yeah, he said, I know how it is. It's like the shoe repair guy always wears the worst shoes, or the plumber never has time to fix his own toilets, sort of thing. So, you prioritize everything else first, except what you need to do. So listen, it's Friday. We have Fab Friday here with Sammy Jackson and Sabrina Turner, who will be joining us a little bit later on in the morning. Lots of interesting things going on in the world of news. First of all, big shout out to Cayman Airways for putting on a very, very good event yesterday. And in fact, they have been doing the most in the last couple of weeks with the MAX 737-8. So they've it was the MAX 8. They're rebranding it to the Boeing 737-8. It's the same plane, but as one of the pilots pointed out to us yesterday, in many respects, it's not the same plane because it has gone over the last 23 months. It has gone through some very rigorous overhauls and changes and different things. And we got some insight yesterday, in case you missed it, into what has been happening during that period of time. And both the chairman of the board, Mr. Ranking, as well as the CEO, Mr. Fabian Worms, gave us some insight into how Cayman Airways has been doing things a little bit differently than some of the other airlines in terms of even training. And listen, folks, training is really, really important. And even the pilots weighed in on this about the importance of training. But, a lot of these pilots now do, and it's so amazing to me how technology is, right? But a lot of them now rely on what's called simulation training. So it's almost like, to some extent, what your kids will sit down and do with their games. And, it's like flying in a virtual world. But the most interesting thing is I've seen this statistical information before. People who fly planes on a simulator are actually very, very good at getting behind a real cockpit at some point in time. Not exactly the same. And one of the things that Cayman Airways has said that they've always done differently is they have always been keen to give their pilots actual fly time. And they're doing that even now. So they're doing a lot of takeoff and landing sessions with pilots who will be flying that particular plane. So, I feel confident in them that they are doing the right thing. And they're doing it in the right way. And I flew the plane yesterday. That was my first flight, actually, on the 737-8. And I must say it was a smooth flight. In fact, on the way back, they did a flyover Cayman Brac. They kind of circled around the island for people to see the BRAC. And I fell asleep. I was tired. It was it was quite a long day going to the BRAC. So I was so comfortable, I was snoozing. The only thing I didn't do was I didn't recline my seat, which I should have done after takeoff. But the BRAC trip isn't really that far. So by the time you take two little snooze, it's ready to get back up and get off the plane. So yeah, I want to congratulate Cayman Airways, their board of directors, as well as every single person from Olivia, who does marketing and public relations, to all of the mechanics. I mean, there's so many people that make that airline the continued success that it is. And a lot of them you don't necessarily see in the foreground, but they are working incredibly hard to keep us safe. They've got ground crew, and we've been promised a tour of like their operational facility. And we will take Mr. Fabian up on that offer, because I think it's important that all of us get a keen insight into how these businesses operate. Cayman Airways is our national airline. We are very, very proud of it, especially in light of the fact that we're such a small country. I mean, I don't think you guys understand how amazing it is for a country the size of the Cayman Islands to have its own airline, and not only to have its own airline, but to have an impeccable safety record, as well as, to have such wonderfully qualified pilots and mechanics and the whole 9 yards. So I was very delighted to be in a position to attend yesterday's trip to the BRAC. Someone jokingly said to me, and I gotta read this one verbatim for you guys, because it really made me laugh. This person messaged me after I came back. And by the way, in case you missed it, we did live stream the event on Facebook. You can check it out. This person said to me, "OMG, you have the biggest balls on earth. You tell PPM you're bringing them down in April and still get on the max 8 with them to Cayman BRAC. Full credit to you, Naras. You the best." Oh my gosh, that comment made me like, LOL, seriously. I mean, I don't think I've told the PPM I'm bringing them down. Have I? Nah. I mean, we've just told them that we need better governance in this country politically. And, I don't personally think that they've been delivering for the most part. And, I like a lot of PPM members. I mean, like I said, I was a PPM member. It's the agouti. Oh my God, he's walking so slow today. I gotta tell you, every time I see this little agouti, there he goes underneath the car. I'm in such awe of this little creature. There he goes. This morning, he's moving ever so slowly. I'm not sure why he's moving. He's kind of like creeping this morning. Maybe he spent the night out and now he has to go answer to his poor wife. I'm going to show you guys a footage of him here in a second. He's amazing. But I tell you what, this agouti, I'm telling you guys, he is going to predict some upsets for the general election. And Sammy is already sitting in the back room here. So Sammy, the agouti, has approved of you in Red Bay. You've got his blessings. So take it for what it's worth, because I think it's worth quite a bit, actually. So the BRAC trip, folks, was fabulous. Lots of people worked very, very hard yesterday to pull this off. Big shout out to the government workers who did everything from arrange the catering on Cayman BRAC, because they did serve us lunch. We didn't actually get to leave the airport. So by the time we were done interviewing the CEO, the pilot, everybody that kind of needed to be interviewed, we spoke to a couple of pilots, the kids, the whole 9 yards. There was really no time to go, even as small as the BRAC is, there was no time to go walking around or exploring or anything like that. It was a day trip, and we were just back just as soon as that. So somebody else is saying, "Where are you? We're only seeing your emoji." Sometimes I like to put the emoji on. It's not that I don't even look presentable. Look, here we go. Now, I love that emoji picture, by the way, but here we go. Since you guys are insisting, wait a minute, where am I? That is a good question. Since you're insisting that you see me, hold on. Let me turn the camera on. Yeah, sometimes it's as simple as I'm actually doing other administrative stuff in the background. And so instead of having you kind of like watch me do those things, I always think you prefer to just see the emoji. But it looks like the truth of the matter is you guys just like to see me. So not a problem. Not a problem. Not a problem. Yeah, so let me see if I can get it going. There we go. See, it's not so bad. Although I do need to adjust this ever so slightly. And I do need to fix my flag in the background. My friend who works in protocol said, "What is going on with the edges of that flag?" We soon sort that out. Don't worry. Evelyn, good morning. Good morning, Miss Morna. Hello, Marshall. Good morning to Miss Joy. Chantal, it's good to see you. Tony is watching all the way from Canada. Tony, what is the weather like in Canada? It's got to be cold because I know Texas was cold. Somebody sent a picture. I don't know if it was a total joke or not, but they showed like a building in Texas where the inside is like frozen. I was like, what the heck? So there's a cold snap, folks, that is happening as we speak in a lot of the US, the North. So I hope you guys who are joining us from those areas, Larry, Louie, Tony, bundle up, turn on the heater, get warm and cozy, get a hot chocolate going. So good morning to Barbara. Evelyn says she's been waiting with her cup of tea. Thank you guys so much for waiting through the little tech issue this morning. Basically, I just had to restart everything. Tanisha, thank you, darling. Zita, Ms. Zita, how are you? Alana is here. What candidates are speaking? So today we've got Sammy Jackson, who's going to be coming up here shortly. And then we have Sabrina Turner, who will be joining us a little bit later on in the program as well. So Miss Corrine says, happy Friday. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Thank you. Today is indeed Friday. Couple events going on for the weekend. By the way, next week, Savannah Primary is going to have a renaming ceremony, and we will be there for that. So I want you guys to make sure that you stay tuned. We will live stream that event for you. I get that a lot of you still reminisce about K-Man 27. You still say, we could really do with a TV station. I get this question all the time. Why don't you start a TV station? Well, there's actually a lot of logistical reasons why I would never start a TV station. The main reason is it just doesn't make any sense economically. They're not economically viable. Now, having said that, I do think that there's this hybrid or this gap that we are trying to fill here in CMR. That's why we do a lot of live streaming. In case you haven't noticed, we are like the queens of live streaming when it comes to media, because we really get that people are very, very visual. You guys love shows and you love live streaming content. And so, yes, we're all about that. And we will continue to bring you as many events as we possibly can. Live streaming, yeah? So let me just see here. So yes, so we will continue to do that as much as possible. And it's kind of like you can watch us on YouTube when we're live streaming on YouTube. Obviously, our primary platform is Facebook. We are looking at some options that will allow us to live stream directly from the website for those of you who don't have, Facebook. And, sometimes it's a little bit tricky, dual streaming to Facebook and YouTube at the same time. But we're looking at some options, folks, and we will continue to try to bring you those solutions as much as we can. So, truth be told, we are actually Cayman's #1 trusted source for news. Now, I know you guys are thinking, Sandy's just telling us that because, she's running CMR. Actually, this is an independent report, and it's not the first time, but it's the first time that people that matter, we know, notice how I'm saying this, right? They're the ones who are calling me saying, hey, do you know that there's an independent survey out done by a marketing company that has placed CMR in that top news slot? And I say yes, because I know a lot of things that are happening in this community. And I also know that last year the results were very similar. I think this year it's a higher percentage or higher margin that we have been, slotted in terms of the results of the survey. So thank you guys. I mean, I don't know who exactly they're calling, but they're calling kind of average people. And so if you get a media survey and you've been participating in that, you will know if you selected CMR when they asked you that media question. I also had a political candidate call me last night, and he said to me, Sandy, I wanted to really just reach out to you and give you a pat on the back and let you know that, we're going through our list of voters for this particular district. I'm calling a lot of people and I'm reaching out to them. And one of the questions that they're asking them is, where are you getting your election news from? And he was like, by and large, the vast majority of voters are saying that they're getting their election news from Cayman Mall Road and nobody else. So when we say that we are your election headquarters, we're not saying that as just a marketing ploy. We're actually saying that because it is the truth. So there it is, and we believe in telling the truth here. So Jackie and Charles, good morning. Good morning, Mr. Walton. So nice to see you. Mr. Walton says he is locked on. Richie, how you doing, my friend? Good to see you. Irvlin says, I'm going to see him and give him that talk for you, love. Which, oh, yes, hubby. Yes, girl. Tell him mama needs a new computer. And, I have to leave those things to him, folks, because he really is the expert in terms of speccing things out. So Corrine says, Tony, good morning. Carol says, we're loud and clear. Miss Lulu is here. James joining us from Canada. Lizette is also here. Irvelyn says, yes, you're seeing me, Irvelyn, no problem. Yes, Tony, sometimes I don't show the picture, but you see my little emoji. And you know what? Here's another thing that I do just to give you guys a little bit of insight is when I have guests on and I want you to focus in on the guests, you will notice that I will do this and I will just show that picture. And I will allow the guests to be seen live. And it's also a cue for my guests. I don't know that my guests have ever picked this up because I haven't necessarily said it to them. But when they see me come back on camera live, that's normally their cue that whatever they were saying, answering a particular question or making a particular point, I need them to wrap it up so I can kind of jump back in there. So that's a little hint as well in terms of how we do it. But yes, you guys love to see my face. You want to make sure it's me. Carol says, noting another breach, quarantine breach. Yes, in Cayman Brac. Can we ask for an explanation as to why none of these breaches have been prosecuted yet? Carol, I'm going to email the police this morning and inquire if we can get an update. I don't know. The DPP operates at their own pace, folks. I mean, they have a very special way of doing things. Sometimes they move very, very quickly. And other times they just drag their proverbial feet. Now, Sammy Jackson, in case you guys don't know, once worked in I think he was a prosecutor. Let me ask him. Sammy, I'm going to bring you in here because I can ask you this question. Good morning, my darling. How are you?
Good morning, Sandra. How are you?
I'm good. Were you a prosecutor? You did civil and criminal, right?
Yes, I was. Yes,
because you were there way back when it was just the legal department, I think is what it was called.
I used to say that I did twice the work for half the pay. I was assigned work independently by the civil side, which is now the Solicitor General's office,
right,
and the criminal side, which is now the DPP's office. It was all amalgamated under one roof called the legal department in the old tower building.
Yes.
So yeah, I got a lot of
the tower building.
Yep.
Wow, that was a long time ago. Yeah, well, I went to law school in the Tower Building, so that was a long time ago.
There you go. I was.
So you would have been up and down in that little inky-dinky elevator with me, and
Yeah.
I probably didn't even notice. Louis says enjoying the South Florida weather currently. Oh, Louis on vacation, sounds like. Marshall is testifying that Texas is really bad. So, Carol, it's a good question regarding the quarantine breachers on the BRAC. And what I have been able to ascertain, let me just check my BRAC source here. Let me tell you what they said this morning. I did get a little bit of an inside scoop. They said, good morning, ma'am. Here we go again. These people breaking our quarantine laws, Americans, Lord have mercy. I'm surprised that the ones that live here, especially the female. Oh, so it looks like we know who they are. The position she holds, she knows better, but Americans so can't expect any better. According to our Ma Road Talk, who the visiting person at the residence are. What a mess. Well, rest assured, we will have information in due course in terms of names and probably photos, and jackasses of the day will be going up on the website. So listen, we are equal opportunity accountability holders. That's so not a phrase, but you know what I mean. We will hold everyone accountable equally. I don't care where you're from. So I personally don't care if you're an American or if you're from Timbuktu. If you come to the Cayman Islands and you cannot respect our quarantine provisions, especially on the BRAC. I mean, Grand Cayman is bad enough, but folks, Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, we had them separated from us for so long and shut them down to try to keep that incredibly precious elderly population, which is a larger percentage of there, safe. And you get the opportunity. They finally open up the BRAC to people being able to home quarantine. You guys are begging for it. You get the opportunity. And then this is what you do. You just ignore the laws and the provisions that are in place to keep us all safe. Not cool. I'm not impressed. Darlene says, Sandy, just yesterday I was saying to myself that you will be the #1 news source, and only to hear the survey has said that. Congrats. Yes, Darlene, thank you so much. But like I said, I know last year, I think the results are very similar, but I think this year it might have been like a shocking margin. But that's because of you guys. I really appreciate the love and support that you show us on this format all the time. Do we always get it right? Absolutely not, folks. There are times when we get it like miserably wrong, but I can tell you what, we're quick to correct it. And we do get a lot of information, quite frankly, that other media just doesn't, especially about the election. Like we are in tune with, I've been to Sammy's house. I've sat down in his living room with him because I think if he's going to come on this program and tell us about Sammy the man, I really want to know, is this guy legit? Does he have the credentials that he says he has? Not professional credentials, but the passion to make change for the Cayman Islands. All of these other ancillary things that are needed to make someone a great leader, political leader. And I can vouch that Sammy is well on his way. And so, when we make announcements like this one here, for example, when I said, hey, she's going to be running, and she does this whole post about how she's not running and she's insulted and blah, blah, blah. And then less than 2 weeks later, we see this announcement in social media that she is running for Northside. We all kind of chuckle because we know that the truth of the matter is CMR was 100% spot on. So sometimes not everyone likes to be held accountable, or, they don't like the truth to be told, or they want to control the information. And we don't believe anyone should be controlling the information. We think that, you put it out in the public and you allow the readers to decipher for themselves what's going on. So have you guys noticed that the Tara River story went up and Tara has not said a single word about that story? She's not denied it. She's not confirmed it. Nothing. It's just radio silence. And for sure when I tell you that story is 100% spot on. So Charles says, fellow Caymanians, CMR might not get it right always, but CMR is the lonely news site that is concerned about issues affecting Caymanians. Sandy is a voice for the voiceless. Thank you so much, Charles. I really appreciate that. John says CMR needs to be on the radio. You would be happy to know, John, that we are working on a potential solution that would allow us to simulcast this program on radio. So stay tuned, wink, wink, for that. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time for things to happen, and we would be partnering with someone. And of course, we do wish for it to be a partnership that is going to have longevity and that is going to work for all of the parties involved. But we are in talks with someone to make that happen, because I do recognize, for me, we all have to be willing to take counsel, in other words, advice from other people. So when this platform was started, you guys know I'm like tech. I love technology. And I think technology is our friend. We have to use it wisely, and we can do so much with it. So I'm all about, podcasting, live streaming, the works. And when someone first said some time ago about having a presence in radio, the first thing that came to my mind is, oh gosh, you're too old. That's why you're making this comment, because radio is so antiquated and we're moving back a step with the technology. Of course, it was in the back of my head and I started thinking about it. And then I've had other people just like John say, yeah, but hold on. At the end of the day, is still an audience that, likes radio. And not everyone, and this saddens my heart, but not everyone has the tech resources available. They may not have home internet, or if they're driving their car, they may not have the ability to stream unlimited for the 2 hours that you're on every single day. So I've listened to you guys and I've heard you loud and clear. And I have made some inquiries within the radio market to see potentially who we could partner with. And I think something is coming. We don't have anything in writing yet, but we are definitely in talks with someone in that space right now to see what we can do. So thank you, John, and the rest of you who continue to make that suggestion, because we are definitely looking into it. And big shout out to Miss Irma, who was the first one who said that to me. Girl, you got to get on radio. And like I said, when she first said it, I'm thinking, is this a product of someone in that kind of older generation who just loves radio? But I think Miss Irma was spot on. So listen to your elders, listen to those younger than you, listen to those wiser than you. Sometimes you even have to listen to those who are not as wise as you, because they still have something that could be of value that they're saying. So good morning to Elizabeth. We're doing great. She says, good morning, Sandy. You're doing things and going places on information. Bless up. Even in the BRAC yesterday, I had a young Jamaican fellow who said to me, well, I don't think he was that young, but he said, oh, you're Miss Sandra. And I said, yes. And he said, trust me, we get all of our news here on the BRAC because of you. So thank you so much for everything that you do. And then ironically, when I came back to Grand, I was at Foster's Airport, and I had just pulled into a parking spot, and all of a sudden at my window, I saw this young girl, and I was like, oh, what's going on here? And I rolled down my window, and she said, hi, Miss Sandy. And I said, hi. So her mom said, oh, she saw you and she just wanted to come and meet you because she's such a CMR fan. We have a lot of kids who love Cayman Mall Road, like seriously. And I want to talk about that here for a second, because I got to tell you, for Lent, I'm giving up something. You guys are going to be surprised at this. And it's in relation to perhaps the example that I'm setting for kids on this platform. So you guys know I'm a very, sometimes I have a mouth like a sailor. And I didn't always used to be that way, but since returning to Cayman, there's certain things that I see that just, like, my mouth is just like, ah. So a couple, sometimes I pop off a few words that are like, Sandy, why are you dropping a curse word? And on this platform, I can do that without any real repercussions. Obviously, on radio, that's a whole other thing, because that's off-reg would be ringing off my phone, I suppose. But more importantly, I recognize that a lot of these kids are watching. They're looking up to me, and they love the platform. Who knew that kids were like so into news, but they really do love it. And we're still going to be launching our youth program. And I want to do something for like the younger kids as well, right? Like elementary and middle school age. And then a more serious conversation for those who are a little bit older. But this young lady came up to me. I gave her a little mug. And I said, thank you so much. But I've been thinking about this. And again, I've had someone else say to me, sometimes kids are listening to the program. And one lady said her grandson said, Granny, can Sandy say that word on the show on Facebook? And so I need to do better. So this is one of those situations now. We're on this platform. I think I need to cut out the use of any kind of bad words. Once in a while, I might still say BBC because we all know what that means. But yes, I think I need to cut back on that. So those of you who walk around with a Bible under your arm, you'll be glad to hear Sandy saying this morning that you can now listen to the show without any fear of me dropping an occasional word here or there. Listen, I'm not an Elvis. It's not every other word, and it's not a total tirade like that. But I do get that we have children listening to the program. And although a lot of times I will say, this is an adult conversation, kids are still listening. And so it's incumbent on me to, I think, remove those words from my vocabulary. And it's not an issue of me not being able to express myself without them. But sometimes I just feel like they just do the job so incredibly well. But of course, I am a mother. I've got a 4-year-old. I do not use profanity around her. I did once, and she was like 2, and she immediately repeated what I said. And I was like, how do kids, I mean, they take it all in. Of course, she had no idea what it meant, but she said it right away. And I was like, oh my God, if my husband hears my daughter saying that word, he's going to look at me like, what's going on here? So without a doubt, we will definitely be making some adjustments. So Siobhan says that's the same thing that I'm working on for Lent. We can do this. Yes, we can. Evelyn says no more dropping of the F-bomb. Shall, honey, some days. But you know what? Come April the 15th, maybe with a new government, I won't be so tempted to use it as often. But yes, I will be doing better. Sammy, what do you think about this idea of me giving up cursing for Lent and into the foreseeable future? Now, listen, I'm not going to give it up completely because I might be having a private conversation with a friend where I may still use it. But anyway, in terms of on this platform, for sure.
Well, I think we all need to work on that. I mean, sometimes we utter things that we regret afterwards simply because we're frustrated with whatever we're dealing with at the moment. I wanted to say something about kids, though. It struck me many times recently, but just again the other day when my son asked me a question about not just politics, but a geopolitical issue. That he's 20 years old. He's far smarter, far more attuned to real world events than I was when I was his age. When I was his age, my mind was mostly on girls, cars, and occasionally law school. But he's and he's not alone. And these kids nowadays are very smart. They pick up information so quickly. Their minds are trained to do that. I think we owe it to them to give them wholesome input. We need to focus on, because they are, at the end of the day, they are one true precious resource. That's what I got involved in this for, because I have kids and grandkids, step grandkids, but they're still my grandkids, 3 little boys that I love dearly. And I want to make a better future for them, right? And this is part of it. So I have joined you already in trying to suppress that, let's just say, more primitive side of uttering things that I should not be saying. But that's just a big part of it, a part of a big the big picture. We really need to do many things to improve the future Cayman for our kids and grandkids. And I think if we focus on that, if that becomes then sort of the driving force, the reason for our every initiative, then instantly our mission will be transformed into a better one. Let's put it that way. So
absolutely. Thank you so much for that. No, I totally agree. Aliano says, trust me, the heat you bring is much needed. Not since Austin Harris and Jonathan and Crosstalk had the morning been so enjoyable, and the ability to engage is a godsend. Well, thank you so much. And speaking of engage, I think that's a cue, Aliano, for us to drop our video reminding all of you that you can call into the program. I'm going to share the link here in the comment section. Call in, jump on screen with us. We would love to hear your voice, not just you typing.
Yeah. It's the Cold Hard Truth News Podcast. Cold Hard Truth News Podcast. Come make we talk on the live broadcast. Come make we talk on the live broadcast. This a the Cayman #1 live talk show. Come make we talk where you go on the news.
All right, folks. So jump into the conversation. We would love to hear from you. Let me just grab the link. Anyone can join. And by the way, the link doesn't change. I've set it up from a tech perspective so that the link doesn't change. You can just click on it every single week and it's the same. Sherry-Ann is so excited to see Sammy here. She says, put Sammy on, please. He's on, girl. He's on. We're getting there. Thank you so much, Irvelyn. And again, folks, that is the link to join in on the program at any time. Tin says, Miss Sandy, can we understand you clearly how you talk and use words, specifically those whose English is not the first language? Not like the other newscasters. It's hard to understand some of them because they have an accent. Ooh, interesting. God bless. Well, you are most welcome. Thank you for that feedback. I do think that a lot of you know I spent 15 years in the States, but I also have a speech communications background from my first university degree. So I think I tend to pronounce my words a little bit more. Like I really try to enunciate my words. So I'm pleased that you, even as a foreign language speaker, appreciate that. And don't forget, one of the benefits of Facebook, of watching the show on Facebook, folks, is that you are able to see the captions. So Facebook has embedded into their platform closed caption. So I've actually had people who are hearing impaired reach out to me once the closed caption started. They thought it was something I did, and it wasn't anything. I can't take credit for that. That is a complete Facebook feature. And they said, wow, this is amazing because I can't hear that well. I wear a hearing aid. I'm hearing impaired. And this closed captioning allows me to actually read your words and fully understand what is happening in the conversation. So big shout out to Facebook for having a nice feature like that. So thank you guys so much for your feedback on the program. We continually strive to make improvements wherever we can. Now, I want to talk a little bit about an issue that kicked off, was that this week or last week? When we had the young lady, the Cuban young ladies on the program. That was actually last week, because last week, Friday, we also did a live stream late in the afternoon from the steps of the government building. Now, here's the latest update on that situation. So I like to make sure you guys get updated, because I know sometimes a news story will come out and then you go, whatever happened to that situation, right? So the Human Rights Commission, my apologies, issued a statement yesterday, I think it was early afternoon or late morning, regarding the situation with the Cuban nationals. Now, I do want to read in part what they have had to say and explain exactly what it means. So as you guys know, the Cuban nationals have been protesting for at least 13 or 14 days now on the government steps. This is not the first time that they have protested. The gist of the protest is that the wives or spouses of persons who have political asylum, so Cuban nationals can apply for and get political asylum. I'm assuming it's not just Cuban nationals, like anyone, I guess theoretically could apply for political asylum, but it tends to be Cubans because of the structure of their government. They still have a communist government in Cuba. And those who have been successful have recognized and realized that their spouses and children and family members do not, by extension, get the same benefits that they do of their political refugee status. And I have said from day one, that is strange and unusual. And it also seems to be strange and unusual that they didn't know that at the time that they were granted the political asylum. Like, nobody bothered to explain that to them. So the Human Rights Commission has now stepped in. Last week, Friday, as you guys will recall, if you saw the live stream, we were there speaking to Erica and another young man, I can't remember his name now, but they were explaining, and I said to them, listen, I knew that they were struggling with saying what they needed to say in English. I said, you know what? Just say it in Spanish. We have a lot of Spanish speakers in Cayman who will fully understand exactly what you're saying. And the most interesting thing is, I understand a little bit of Spanish. but I understood most of what she said, because you got it between not just the words that she was using, the body language, her sentiments. And she got very emotional, Erica, at one point about her predicament when she was talking about, she can't even, they took her passport. She doesn't have the ability right now to travel and to see her children. And she's just asking for the right to be able to work and help support her family. So as it stands right now, she would require a work permit. Her husband doesn't. Her husband has the ability to live and work here without any work permit restrictions. She has to apply for work permit, and the situation with that. You have to go through advertised positions and all this sort of thing. You have to find an employer that wants to pay a work permit fee. And those things can be a hindrance depending on what sort of field you're in. Those can be a hindrance to you finding gainful employment, especially during COVID times. So I felt her pain. I felt her sentiment, and I sympathize with people. I also understand the position of most Caymanians feeling that the protest itself and how it's being done is probably not the best approach. But these persons have been trying to get government to do the right thing for a long time, and government apparently has been ignoring them. And that equally is not right. I have lived in another man's country for 15 years. As what I consider a guest in that country, although towards the end I had residency, right? I was still I've never been an American citizen. I've never applied for American citizenship. And so I understand what it's like to be in someone else's country and trying to follow the immigration laws and adhere to those, and sometimes just getting very, very frustrated with the system. And if the system isn't clear and it's not fair and equitable, then that is also a problem. So I think I understand both sides of this equation. And we have to know that human rights plays an important part in our laws and how we operate. So the Human Rights Commission has now said that there is a legislative gap between the CBC law, which is the border control law, and the actual, so it's now called the Customs and Border Control Act 2018, because I think all of our laws are now acts. Is that right, Sammy? There was some change.
Yes.
Once we change over to Parliament. So everything is now an act, like in the UK, right? Okay. So this Customs and Border Control Act 2018 revision has no provision in it to regularize the expatriate spouse. And that seems very, very illogical from a legal perspective. And so they have said that, listen, they've reached out to the ministry that has responsibility for CBC, and they have said to them that this needs to be fixed because this flies directly in contravention of Section 9 of the Constitution, the right to private and family life, as well as the United Nations Convention relating to the status of refugees, to which Cayman is a signatory. Yep. So we sign on to these things, Sammy, and we have to know what the implications are of those sorts of things. Now, on Friday, they allowed the husband into the government building, is my understanding. And him and the baby were in there. They would not allow the wife, which I thought was just so sexist and rude on so many different levels, because she has been the driving force of the protest. And in fact, she's the one who is actually being impacted by whatever change are coming forward. Then by, I think, Monday or Tuesday, I had heard that the governor, and I confirmed at the governor's office, so this information was incorrect in the sense that the person was saying the governor had issued some sort of governor's permit to be able to reside and work and whatever without a work permit. The governor doesn't do that. So that part of my information, because again, I thank the governor's office for making themselves available where I can send them a question and they will answer. They will respond one way or the other. So just like the elections question, early election, when I said to them, oh, I hear we're having an early election, can you confirm officially yes or no? When they didn't immediately respond, I knew it was absolutely true, because normally that means that they are rushing to prepare a press statement that goes out, the official position. So in this case, they said, no, the governor doesn't get involved in that. The governor doesn't issue, he has no immigration, controls or anything like that. So
the strange thing is that we've been down this road before with this.
Yeah, it looks like we can't learn, Sammy.
Well, here's the thing. There is a decision albeit not a decision of the court, but a decision of the Immigration Appeals Tribunal, which I was sitting on at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was sometime around circa 2003. I think it was pre-Ivan. When we dealt with that very painful, very controversial Afghani migrant issue, we'd had a sort of a preliminary hearing in the Grand Court regarding the matter. It was then referred to the Immigration Board to make a determination, and the Immigration Appeals Tribunal was ultimately seized of the matter by virtue of an appeal. We had QCs come down from the UK. We had senior Crown Counsel arguing, and I was sitting as a member of the Immigration Appeals Tribunal. And it was about whether these group of Afghanis who were of this Hazara sect, I think they're a minority group that are seriously prejudiced in many ways, preyed upon, in fact. There's all sorts of forms of persecution. We ended up having a hearing where we saw all of the evidence of that, people being castrated and flung into the streets to die and all kinds of horrible, horrible things. We had to go down that road because we had to determine whether they were political refugees or not.
Mm-hmm.
In the end, when we looked at the Hague Convention on Refugee Status and the current legislation that came in, we delivered a judgment which was not challenged. There was a lot of fight about it, but I can say that I can tell you that I wrote the judgment. I wasn't the chairman, but we delivered it, and it wasn't challenged. So it stands there as sort of an instructive decision on how we deal with refugees. Now, the Cuban refugee status is something that's sort of difficult to understand, because at some point in time, the Western Hemisphere needs to decide whether the Cuban government is a dictatorship or not, and consequent there to whether people who flee from the shores of Cuba are political refugees. I believe there's been a lot of debate about their status in all of the regions around the Caribbean basin. But we need to simply make a decision. If we have statutes that are lacking, right, we need to, that's the very sort of thing that you would have thought that government would have called an emergency, convened an emergency meeting of the parliament to address. But of course, we can't do that now because parliament is dissolved for purposes of pure political expediency.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that we would have thought, in my humble opinion, Parliament should have been kept open as long as it could be. And we could have now dealt with this issue. But
exactly. But
we're obviously here with our hands tied, and it's going to be a problem that a future government is going to have to deal with.
And there seems to be no political will to resolve this issue, because when I hear these Ericas from Dominican Republic saying that it's been years that they've been back and forth with the government on this situation, to me, that just doesn't make any sense. You don't keep people in limbo for years. And it's really, really unfortunate that it had to come to the stage where it was even necessary for them to protest. But again, I leave that and I place that squarely on the shoulders of this government. This government led by Alden McLaughlin has proven time and time again, folks, that he is often not interested in having a discourse with people. We've seen it with Chantal Day and Vicky Bodden. They wrote to the premier saying, after having written to the governor, Helen Kilpatrick, that's how long ago this was, said, go to your government, do it that way, or take him to court or whatever. The governor was not going to directly get involved. So all of you now who want to cuss the governor and go on about why did he have to implement the civil partnership bill, years of back and forth forced the UK government to have to step in. And we have to admit that there was nothing that this government was going to do to resolve the situation. And when they first reached out to Mr. McLaughlin before the very first piece of legal document was filed, they sent him correspondence and he completely ignored them. I mean, I don't know how rude you can get, but one of the rudest things, in my opinion, that you can do when someone writes you in a formal capacity or asks you a question as a representative, as a leader of this country, is for you to pretend like they don't even exist. You don't respond. You don't say thank you. You don't say nothing. And I'm going, what do you think the next response is going to be? Of course, people are going to lawyer up, and he's done it on more than one occasion. I mean, it's just,
it costs the government.
Professional.
It continues to cost the government millions of dollars.
Yes.
You've seen the recent case with Doctors Express that as if you're going to take the credit for the actions of others as the premier, you need to take the bad credit too.
Exactly.
So the blame for that lies at his feet ultimately as the leader of the country. But his political career has been defined by his dismissive attitude towards others who he obviously regards as being lower than him, intellectually and otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the attitude employed by him towards the CPR group, for example, when they put forward, I signed that petition early on, and I sat and watched in absolute amazement. Despite the massive groundswell of public support for a referendum, how he just brushed that aside, moved dates around, did everything he possibly could. And I have had that experience with him personally as well. When we tried to deal with the Silpa Cara debacle, right, where the government has helped a number of the firms in Georgetown set up a bespoke, to use one of his favorite terms, bespoke private entity to create an imaginary regulatory authority to regulate all lawyers. And then he decided he was going to pass legislation to force every lawyer in the country to be a part of that entity, so that they could then regulate us with all sorts of wonderful imaginative provisions and policies that they developed out of thin air, not legally.
Mm-hmm.
And we went and met with him, and we were simply dismissed. At the end of the meeting, mind you, they promised that they would respond to us. They promised they would host a meeting. And the response we got to that was the Legal Services Act, which is in my humble opinion, still remains fatally flawed.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, we remember the school's project where he said, basically, that God would have to come down from heaven and tell him, this is his attitude towards governance, towards his people, and it has not promoted a healthy environment to live or function in. I can tell you, as a business owner, and as an advisor to business owners, all the things that government has done, right, has caused nothing but trouble for a lot of the stakeholders in this country, and they have had to work around him because he picks whatever issues he wants to deal with. He deals with them in his own way, and he doesn't take advice.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just recklessness. And that's one of the reasons I chose to run in Red Bay.
Yeah.
Because this country cannot afford to continue to go down that road. And then we hear, oh, well, he did a wonderful job with COVID. Well, what did we do? We did what everyone else on earth did. But we had the additional benefit, which is the lockdown, but we had the additional benefit of being an island, so we could create the bubble, right? Once you shut the borders, it's very easy. You don't need to worry about somebody creeping across the border at night unless he comes by a canoe. And we have all sorts of sophisticated equipment and helicopters to ensure that doesn't happen, or in theory anyhow. But the reality is, we wouldn't have had to go into lockdown if we had been a little more proactive about not letting the first case into our borders in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not saying that if I had been there, I wouldn't have made the same call on a humanitarian basis, but we should have weighed up. We got the distinct impression that what drove that decision was that we could not risk displeasing the cruise lines, which is exactly the same thing that seemed to have informed his government's position with regards to brushing aside CPR and everyone who supported them just to call a referendum. What is the harm in calling a referendum? That is the sensible thing to do with any thorny national issue, because then you can say, look, this should not just be something that's decided on the opinion of government. This is something that should be decided by the opinion of the vast majority of the people in the country. Mm-hmm. A referendum is actually a very convenient device to settle that issue once and for all. Those who participate then have the ability to sit back and watch what the majority of the country wants. Mm-hmm. And it just baffled me. And the only explanation for refusing to engage in that form of democratic participation by the electorate is there was an agenda. There's clearly an agenda. And I want people to be reminded that if it is clear that he intends to run, as he said, as he wants to be a minister and sit in cabinet. And obviously, they're going to put Mr. Mark Taggart up as the premier. That is the hope under the new, and they're going to need a coalition to do it. So you got to wonder if Mr. Bush comes back, we'll end up with him being part of the government again. That's pretty clear. Let's put it this way. That is a real risk, right? And then we'll have Mr. Mark Taggart there, controlled by Mr. McLaughlin. It will be much of the same old, and all of the complaints that everyone has, right, will continue, and the country will suffer for it. And we need to ask ourselves whether has what he performed, the function he performed during the COVID crisis, which we're not out of yet, something I want to talk about in regards to cost of living and all of that sort of stuff. But we're still early days. We're getting vaccinated, but we keep hearing there's new strains, etc. So I hope we have a plan, and I hope that plan is properly informed by the relevant, competent medical people, because I heard a lot of chatter from people in the medical industry that were concerned about the advice the government were getting. But in the end, I think they generally listened. And the reality of the matter is, the people who really deserve credit for Cayman's success during the lockdown is the public. The people of this country came together once again in a crisis and worked together. They didn't challenge anything. I made a number of appearances on a radio talk show and pointed out the fact that the process by which the government had locked us down, which was the curfew under the police law, was unlawful. That doesn't mean to say that I disagreed with what the government had done. I disagreed with the methodology employed. Right. And I warned, if you and that was a clear breach of the Constitution, right? And I stand by that. And I said to folks who said, "Oh, but he's doing the right thing. Maybe he's not doing it the right way, but he's doing the right thing." And I said, "Yeah, but it needs to be done the right way, because if you allow a leader of a country to breach the Constitution for an emergency, that will set the precedent for future breaches, and they'll label it emergency after emergency, and then what you have are the progression towards a dictatorship, because that's what we had for a while, and because we got a good result coming out of it, everybody's forgiven that. And it's not just that; it's all of the other stuff that we need to remember. We need to focus on the future. He prays on one person for the success of all of the people of this country, and we need to weigh up whether that sole single defining act seemingly outweighs all of the other bad stuff that has gone on for the last 8 years. That is what I would invite the people of this country to think about.
So Charles says, for some reason I'm getting feedback. I don't know if you've changed anything there. There we go. It's disappeared. So Charles says, don't bring up Austin Harris. He's a fake. He used a talk show to pretend he cared about Caymanians, but once he got elected, he joined the party and its leadership that doesn't stand for the best interests of Caymanians. And a lot of people feel that way. I got to tell you, I was having a conversation with someone a couple of days ago, and they said, listen, the second Austin helped to form this government, they began to question how legit he was in terms of the things that he had sat on talk radio for like 5 years and had consistently said. And then once he flipped on the whole port issue, people were just like, this is just ridiculous. You were speaking earlier about Alden, and something occurred to me with this potential situation with McKeeva Bush, right? So someone said, this was on Tuesday, I was at the car wash and I was having a conversation with a PPM supporter. Long-standing member, was there from day one, back in the day when I was there. And we were talking about this McKeeva situation, and two things occurred to me. First of all, they said, oh, but this lady hit him first. I said, listen to me. I want people to stop saying that, because it's not true. And it has to be the most hurtful thing in the world to be victimized by a person of Mr. Bush's stature in this community. Leader in West Bay, church-going, church-singing individual. Speaker of the House, long-serving politician, all of this, and to have this man perpetrating this lie on you when you did absolutely nothing wrong, but in fact was trying to help him. So I said to this individual, I said, listen very, very clearly to what I'm going to tell you. Don't say that to me because you're insulting my intelligence. I saw, and I remain one of the few people in the world who can say that they have seen this video, because I was sitting there in court looking at all the people, all of you wanting to defend Mr. Bush. You were not there to ascertain or see the truth for yourself. Other than media, there was, I think, 3 other people in that courtroom. So you guys don't care to know the truth, but I'm telling you the truth because I was one of the few people who have seen the video footage. And like I keep telling you, it wasn't even with my 2 eyes, it was with my 4 eyes because I was wearing my glasses at the time. And I saw the video footage not once, but twice, because his defense team insisted on putting some man on the stand who to this day confuses me to watch the video all over again. Everybody, even the judge was like, what am I looking for that I didn't see the first time? Folks, she did not hit Mr. Bush. She did not threaten Mr. Bush, right? Mr. Bush's story keeps changing. Every opportunity he gets, it's a different story in terms of his motivation and why he did it. So I said to this person, don't say that to me because now you're insulting me, okay? I saw what I saw and I know what I saw. No one assaulted Mr. Bush. It was the opposite. And let's remember that she wasn't the only one who had attempted to assist him. One of her employees under her that she would supervise as the bar manager first attempted to assist him because he'd been laying in the bushes for God knows how long. And they were unsuccessful. And that is when she stepped in and then attempted to contact Mr. Parchment on a number of occasions. Then the person goes on to say to me, well, let the West Bears do what they're going to do with McKeever Bush. Okay. And I said, okay. I mean, we get that. They will vote and they'll have their say on April the 14th. But I said, the more important thing is, as someone who's a senior member now and one of the original founding members of the PPM, your government, Alden McLaughlin, by calling this early election, has sent a very clear message that he has all intentions of preserving that relationship with Mr. Bush, political relationship, where if he gets back in and he needs to work with Mr. Bush again, he will do so. And this person is trying to convince me up and down and all around that, no, that's not going to happen. And I'm like, are you crazy? The PPM is not going to get a majority.
They can't. They're running 7 members, aren't they?
Sorry?
I think they're running as far as we know, they're only running 7 candidates.
It's impossible for them to get a majority.
Unless they have a
Sabrina into the stream. Good morning, Sabrina.
Hi, good morning.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
So I just having this conversation. I know Sabrina has been in the back of the studio listening, but I was having this conversation with this individual and I said to him, how could you be so confident that Mr. Bush will not end up being Speaker of the House again or in a ministerial position? I'm like, there is no way that you can give anybody in this world that assurance. And in fact, the likelihood of it happening, the probability of it happening is extremely high. That being the case, the only way that we can hope to adjust that is when we go to the polls on April the 14th, if we vote a little bit wiser. For example, removing Alden McLaughlin and giving Mr. Samuel Jackson an opportunity.
It's really up to the people. It's up to the people, to be honest, Sandra and Sammy. And I can't stress this anymore. There are some people that will always have a following. We all know that.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Bush, likewise, many other sitting politicians right now, despite what is happening or has happened with this conversation in regards to the case and assault and so forth, that are really passionate lovers of the gentleman. Now, when you talk about accountability and all that sort of stuff, if Mr. Bush runs again, more than likely, he will have a very strong following. How the election process is set up right now, in all honesty, it's really up to the people. It's not like it's a national vote where you get one vote and you vote for your best person so that the chances of, let's say, me not getting elected is better measured, or me getting elected is better measured in that setting. So it's really up to whether or not there is a political maturity of the constituents, really and truly, who are putting themselves up for office. What are the options available to them? But ultimately, it's the voters that will make that choice come April 14th.
Well, for sure. And I mean, I'm sitting here saying to the voters that they have the power. And if they don't exercise that power for whatever reason, or they don't exercise it wisely, then the likely outcomes will be very much of what we have now. So one of the decisions, people here were talking about Austin earlier, the people of Prospect have seen what Austin has done or not done in the past 4 years. And one of the choices that you now have to make, folks, is you've got Sabrina as one option in Prospect, and she's putting herself forward. And you have to decide, you know, am I going to put my trust in Sabrina? Austin has been given 4 years to prove himself. A lot of you, quite frankly, based on what I'm hearing on the street, have said that he has failed. And his failure will cost him the election. This is what you guys are saying. It will cost him the election come April the 14th. So that being the case, here's a young lady who is a viable option for you. You know, you have to make a determination based on the things that she's saying. She's having public meetings. She's having community meetings. She's coming on this program. You need to judge for yourselves her suitability to represent your interests and represent you as the people. Now, Sabrina, we get this question all the time. And so we've got to address this. One constantly people say, and I know that there's a lot of, in the background of politics, there's a lot of individuals out there, the candidates and their supporters, like the incumbents and their supporters, a lot of times pushing a certain narrative. And I hear them consistently. I just got another one this morning that I'll address here in a second. But the one in relation to you that I think you need to answer as straightforward as you possibly can for the benefit of our listeners and the voters of Prospect is people keep saying, oh, Sabrina's PPM. You know, she's going to get in there and she's going to flip like Austin did and work with the PPM and help them form a government. Sabrina, tell us now, for the benefit of everyone listening, what is your position as it relates to, number one, are you PPM? Are you a hidden PPM operative? What exactly is your position?
No, on either, on both, actually. That has been mistaken for a number of years, in all honesty, Sandra, in regards to the works that the Red Bay Prospect Community Group has done. Last night, I held my fourth meeting at Willow Point, and I had to end up educating those in attendance of that meeting who were outright convinced that the Red Bay Prospect Community Group was a PPM community group. That is not indeed the case. Based on my works within the Red Bay and Prospect Community Group, my personal relationship with Mr. McLaughlin, and I have family members working there. At the end of the day, we have to be able to separate personal relationships and politics. That is what we have not, and it's obvious that we haven't matured from. And for that reason, and Mr. McLaughlin is a constituent of the Red Bay Prospect community, having lived there over 30 odd years. The works that the group in which I spearhead and led by the elections of that community allowed me to work closely with Mr. McLaughlin. And outside of community, like I said, we're all Caymanians living here. I have a very respectable relationship with Mr. McLaughlin and his family. So that said, on my now that I have this platform in assuring persons, me putting myself out there as an independent, I am an organic, independent candidate running in the upcoming elections, and I am willing, prepared, and able to work with any group of elected persons after the polls are closed and the last ballot is counted. We all understand and we see what happens when persons are not able to actually get and work a good working relationship with the government, how that can negatively impact what you can get done for your constituents. And I do not want to be in a position where a motion is tabled and it's not, I can't really vote on a motion in the best interest of the people in the country because there's an allegiance to a party or a party leader. And it's for that reason I have chosen to run as an independent and going back, I am not a PPM member. I hope that satisfies the listening and your audience.
Thank you so much for that direct response, Sabrina. Let me ask both you and Sammy this question. If we have the split again, say PPM gets 7 like they did last time, Independents get 7, and CDP, heaven forbid, gets 3, which I don't see them doing. But let's just say that this happened all over again. Sabrina, you and Sammy are the 2 people that they need to flip in order to form a government. And they come to you and they say, right, let's go back to what happened last time. We've got McKeeva Bush, who's gonna get his coins, he's gonna get paid in one way or another. And he's there. Remember this original formation that then fell apart, and Alden swooped in and changed up the dynamics of this. He was able to move McKeeva and his group, which included Bernie, Captain Eugene, and himself. He moved Dwayne John Seymour and Austin Harris. Let's say that for sake of this illustration, Sabrina, you are now standing where Austin is standing. Sammy, you are now standing where John is standing. And the PPM comes to you and they say, right, we need the 2 of you to flip, to join us in order to put this government together that will include Mr. Bush as either Speaker of the House or a minister. What say you?
That's not going to work for me. It's as simple as that. I'm not going to be part of that. I'd rather ride out the 4 years on a backbench and hold people accountable. I do not want to ever be called a hypocrite. Okay. So I'm not going to, I've said a lot about what my position is with regards to what Mr. Bush did, and what Mr. McLaughlin didn't do, which he should have done. And I'm not going to be, for the sake of political expediency, unless, of course, I get an overwhelming pressure from my constituency. But I don't see that happening. I believe that I am, at the end of the day, I would be, as I am as a lawyer, a creature of instructions. That's the thing that AG likes to say. And it is true, because you're there to represent your electorate. But I would have to tell them, I'm sorry, I'm very conflicted about this. I do not want to do that, because I believe in taking a position on principle. And I've taken that position. I'm going to maintain it.
Sabrina?
And if that gets me unelected or doesn't get me elected, then so be it. I want to say that very clearly, so that the people of Red Bay know what my position is on that. I don't intend to do that. I don't intend to have to compromise my principles, and I will not compromise my principles for the sake of political expediency. That's just not going to work.
Sabrina?
Thank God this question was brought up, last night at the meeting. However, it does not represent 50% of the majority electorate. Understanding that there's limited time, what that exact scenario was brought up last night at my Willow Point meeting. And there was a huge majority when the players were called out. What if it's Mr. Bush? What if it's Mr. Alden, Mr. Miller, Mr. McLaughlin? And they were actually quite disappointed when one person actually says, no, right out on the back, if either of the old players are elected. And when I listened quite keenly on what the people stated, the majority stated in attendance, they're like, do not make an opportunity pass you by because of a personality. And bottom line, what came out of everything exchanged last night was come back to your people, understanding that this could be at the wee hours of the morning, and you could need to make a decision very quickly so that it does not repeat what happened in 2017. So I stand to say the key is, no matter what time of the day or night that actually presents itself, I have a mandate to represent the people, and I will go back and consult with those persons, or a good majority of those persons, before confirming my decision. But I really must say that what came out of that was, if an opportunity presents itself that gives you a stronger hold in representing your people, one would not and should not bow down. I hope that answers the question.
Well, what I find interesting about that, Sabrina, because I'm hearing you say that your constituents are still saying, "Oh, get in there and get a ministry, or get into a position of power." I think they're not understanding that that's exactly what happened with Austin, and that hasn't benefited them over the past 4 years. So,
may I interject? It's what has transpired with the current leader is one lost total contact and became dictated to and forgot the people. I cannot speak. I can only speak for myself. If that is indeed the case, I think and I believe in myself, and the people have the trust in me that if the opportunity presents itself, I will not forget the people. I will not forget the people.
I totally hear you. And I've said, even when Wayne was on the other day, I talked about the difficulties of someone, especially their first term in office, becoming a leader in the sense of taking on a ministry or even a consular position. I think everybody has those intentions of not forgetting the people. And despite what people want to say about Austin, I think in my heart of hearts that he had that intention too when he decided to join with the PPM. But some things are easier said than done. And when the PPM government says to you, you have got to toe the line with the port or other issues that you may not be in agreement with, you've already signed up with the devil. You've already signed the line, and you've got that consular position.
I'm going into this race with morals, and one and my slogan stays: your voice, your hope, your choice. And if this causes me an election with how I answered that, then I will stand down and I will respectfully respect the people of Prospect. But I know one thing for sure: I can only stand for who I am, and I know who I am.
Yeah.
So it's up to the people. I am going to be their voice, their hope, their choice. But this is something that definitely will have to be brought back up again. And like I said, it's so interesting that this ideal scenario played out at the meeting last night.
Yeah, and I was at the meeting, by the way, so I don't want people to think I was there.
This identical scenario played out, and it all boiled down to, what does your people say? Because we, until the last ballot is counted and the polls are closed, you honestly do not know who the players are. So what is happening right now is 100% speculation. The chances of some old school people getting back in, yes, that is almost a guarantee based on how people have voted in the past years. But you must also realize that some of the old schools got reelected by as little as 17 votes. So people have to come out and do this change if that's what you're scared of. Don't sit back home, take it as a public holiday, go out on 12 Mile Bank. Do that after you have cast your vote.
Absolutely.
We should not be placed in this position to speculate on something that we don't know. I can only stand on my morals and my principles, and I know how I'm going to represent the people of Prospect.
Yes. So Chandra makes the point. Thank you so much, Chandra, for this comment. She said, John consulted with his people. Austin didn't. That's the difference. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Consult your constituents always, and then make sure your morals and integrity are aligned. Yes, Chandra, I think that may have been the case. At least John said he consulted with his constituents. I don't know how wide that consultation may have been. But again, did he consult with his constituents as he remains silent on the issue of a woman being assaulted at her workplace? I don't think the women in his constituent, especially, have been consulted on this. We haven't heard him say anything on it, so we don't know if they have or not. But it seems to me that they only want to say that they've consulted their constituents when it makes them look good. And when it doesn't, it's just radio silence. But interesting point, nonetheless. I think that people have to recognize, and this is reality of politics, that when you align yourself politically, even as an independent, because to be very clear, Austin has refused to join the PPM. He has never joined the PPM, maybe even to his own detriment, that he hasn't joined the PPM because Alden did approach him and said, join up. And Austin said, no, thank you. And then there were some rumors on the literal Mall Road that as a result of that, PPM would not be throwing their support behind Austin, which I think is so incredibly interesting. But despite that, he has remained an independent candidate. But an independent candidate who has joined this coalition unity government still has been forced to toe the line. No one can explain to me why Austin's position on the port, for example, did a complete 180 flip for no other reason except Alden said, you're part of this government. You are a consular that falls directly under me. And in order for us to move forward on this port position, you have to be supportive of it. And, you know, that's exactly what Austin has done. He's fallen in line. So a coalition government may not give the people the voice that they wish, especially if it's a PPM-led coalition government, because all that means is it's still a PPM government. They can call it it's like what's the saying? A whatever by any other name, a rose by any other name is still a rose. So call it whatever you want. Unity government A, B, C, D, it doesn't matter. It's a PPM government at the end of the day. And that is precisely what has happened. The leadership is PPM. And they have been the ones driving all of the policies as it relates to education and everything else in this country. So Chandra, thank you so much. Sandra came back, Chanda, came back and said, fair point on that. And I like that our elected officials believe in participatory democracy. At least that's what they say on the face of it. You know, Kenneth is one that really believes in that. He's been polling, calling around and polling his voters to talk about the issues that are most important to them. And that is important for sure. But I've also always wondered, how far do you take that? Because sometimes the pulse of your voters does not align. It's like you do a poll and you discover, for example, that the vast majority of your constituents favor reducing the age of consent for young girls, say, for example, because, you know, we have a lot of hidden pedophiles in this community. So all of a sudden you understand that there are people in this country, and this is the cold hard truth here, there are men and fathers in this country who will tell you that they need to break in their daughters first. So say you just happen to get a constituency that has a higher than usual number of those people living in your constituency, and you poll your constituency about protecting young girls and maybe even increasing the age of consent, and you get to understand that the vast majority of your constituents don't feel that way. What do you as a candidate do? You can't then sit back and go, well, I'm here to represent my people and I'm going to do what my people want. There are times when you have to go against the grain and say, you know what? Maybe 75% of my people have said this, but I know that this is wrong. And there's no way, regardless of what the people have said, that I can be in a position to support this. And if they don't think that that is right, then the option is certainly there to vote you out of office. So Donovan, big shout out to Donovan. Donovan says, good answer, Sammy. By the way, Donovan hooked me up yesterday when I was in the BRAC. Donovan went over to Cayman BRAC as well. And apparently he had made some kind of pre-arrangements, it looks like, to raid the bakery there in Cayman BRAC of all of the bread.
I've done that before.
And I don't know what was left, but I heard through the BRAC Mall Road that there was almost a riot at the bakery because Donovan went there and loaded up his car. So when I saw him and Graham Rankin afterwards, and I thought, you guys had time to go to the bakery and get all these goods, and here I am, and I didn't get anything. Well, guess what? Donovan and his kind-heartedness ensured that I was hooked up with a loaf of bread. So Donovan, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. No bola, mind you, but at least I got some bread. So shout out to Donovan. I know his mom is probably here watching as well. You have raised a lovely young man because he knows how to share. So come on, folks, come on in with your comments and questions. We've got Sabrina Turner, who is running for the beautiful district of Prospect. Sabrina has been having a lot of yard meetings. She was the first candidate, by the way, to have a public meeting this election. It was well attended, very, very professional in terms of the setup. I loved her presentation, her theme, her song, her driving force about having passionate women involved in the leadership and running of the country. And she had some real hard hitters standing up on her platform vouching for her as a person of integrity and someone who's already exhibited true leadership qualities. That was a good meeting. And in addition to that, she's been having a lot of other yard meetings. And then, of course, we're also joined by Sammy. Samuel, I want you guys to know, when you go to the polls, you're going to see Samuel Jackson. It's the same Sammy Jackson. And Sammy has announced that he's going to be running for the district of Red Bay, which is right next to Sabrina's district there in Prospects. The two of them could very well be tag teaming and working together post-election. So Sammy is an attorney at law of over 25 years.
Yes, 27.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's practiced. He initially started his career working as a civil service for the legal department, and then he moved into private practice. And he has, Sammy went to, on Tuesday evening, one of the local churches in his constituency. And ironically enough, he had represented their interests at a planning hearing, which they end up losing, unfortunately. But, Sammy's clients run the gamut from small churches who are trying to get permission to build in a certain neighborhood to perhaps some, larger developers. And he, has said that he tries to follow the process and to be fair to everyone and make sure that the rules are equally applied. So Karina joins us and she says it's impossible to consult with 1,000 people or even a representative amount of your electorates in any district in a short time, such as election night. This is a fair point. And I think she's asking, how would that be done? Well, I think what ends up happening, Karina, and this is the reality of politics. So those of us who've been around in the political arena, they will ask their supporters, which is normally the people who show up at the post party, 25, 30, maybe 50 people if you're lucky. Oh, what should I do? And those 50 people normally think along the same lines as the candidate because they're their supporters. And they'll say, oh, yeah, go for the position. Don't lose out on becoming a consulate. Well, I want the people of Prospect to tell me Austin has been a consulate. And I actually believe that Austin has been working very hard. I'm telling you the cold hard truth here. He has been working so hard on Alden's initiatives and the things that he wants Austin to get done in the background. That's why the people don't see Austin. So how beneficial has it been to you all to have a consulate or someone in a leadership position within this current government? That's a question that only the people of Prospect can answer for themselves. But it seems to be the chatter in the street is, in their opinion, it hasn't helped them very much. So being in a position of leadership in terms of being part of the government may not be all that it's cracked up to be when it comes to representing the interests of the people. You can be an effective backbencher, folks. I don't know why people do not think that that is the case. So Sue says nobody from Bodden Town yet, and who are the candidates? So Sue was asking earlier about Chris Saunders. I have actually, in all honesty, not heard of anyone running against Chris Saunders, Sue. But let me be very, very honest with you. I am sure that the PPM government will not allow Chris Saunders to go unchallenged, because that would say something about how weak they believe that they are in that particular district. In terms of the other district with John, we know that Ozzy Bodden has come out. Now, Savannah has 3 candidates thus far, folks. We hear rumblings of potentially a 4th person. I have messaged them this morning, because this would be a very, very interesting situation if that was the case. So I'm not sure how that's going to play out, but I will certainly keep you guys updated and let you know. It would flip the dynamics in Savannah quite a bit. And part of me is really hoping that it's not really going to happen, but we'll see. So someone commented on WhatsApp, said Sabrina's statement on going back to her people is exactly what Tara did when she was first elected in West Bay. We all know how that turned out. Ooh, sounds to me that Sabrina will be supporting Alden if he's returned in Prospect. So that's a comment that has come out on WhatsApp. Another comment says, yes, Sabrina.
It's very interesting how I'm being fried in other people's fat without being given a chance. And in all honesty, I can only speak for my integrity and who I am. And before I even went out public to confirm my intentions of running in the upcoming elections, I knew that this journey would not be easy. And it's because of the precedence has been set by other females that are sitting and people's perceptions of them. In this particular case, I can only ask people to know who I am as an individual. And like we said, we're all trying to predict who is going to get elected without even knowing or prior to. I think we need to get to the point where we understand personal relationships versus politics as it is. And I've said this more than once on your show. Getting elected doesn't make you who you are. It shows people who you are. And for all of the years that I have actually worked within the community, I think my personality, where morals and integrity is concerned, and respecting people's opinion, that is who I am. I totally respect people's opinion, but being in this position, going out there, availing myself, making myself public, to be fried in other people's fat, or how they have pretty much taken advantage of that honor to serve, is honestly, in my humble opinion, not fair.
Okay. We do have another person who has weighed in. They said, Sabrina, read in between the lines. She will call representatives of her group and she will follow their suggestions. What she's saying is that she will call those persons in her group that agree with her. I don't think that's what she said, but while she ignores those that do not, another extension cord. This is how people are feeling. And they said, Sammy gave an excellent response. He's convinced me of his sincerity. So Sabrina, it looks like some people are not feeling this concept of going back to the voters. And again, we've had an example. Someone just pointed out, I'd even forgotten about Tara, to be honest, that she had likewise done that as well as John, and that has not boded well for them. But Sabrina,
let's not misunderstand that I'm running for a ministerial seat. Your question was directed, what if the opportunity presents itself? Which was exactly the scenario that played out.
Right.
What are we saying? What's the majority feel of it? I'm not running for a ministerial seat. I'm running to represent the people of Prospect.
Right.
The question was, what if the opportunity presents itself if a government is led by Mr. Bush or Aldin? My reply was, only the people will decide. We don't know. We're predicting who will be elected. If we're saying Mr. Aldin is going to get reelected, that means Mr. Jackson has lost and has failed to convince the people. So you're asking me a question to predict the future.
Yes. Well, I mean, yes, because I think people want to know if
I'm a hater of Mr. Aldin's style of governance. Of course I am. That's why I'm running. The people have been pushed aside based on what legislations and laws have been put in place. I have two choices. I remain into my business and become a person living in this community in silos and keep my mouth shut. Or I take myself at a comfortable position where I'm okay and avail myself to make a positive change. What does that have to do with Mr. Bush, with Mr. Aldin McLaughlin? The question is, if the opportunity presents itself.
Yeah, and I think just to sort of segue in that point, if it's impossible that it would be that identical scenario that's depicted by that picture, but it'll be a mixture, maybe a mixture of those folks.
Yeah.
So we're all talking hypothetical here. My understanding of what Sabrina is saying is that she will have to do what is best, she determines is best for her electorate based on consulting with the electorate. And I wanted to make a sort of broader point here. I believe it's an inherent part of our duty to our electorate to fully inform and educate where we can our electorate on any particular issue. So rather than just going, picking up the phone and calling, scores of people saying, I have this offer, should I take it? You sit down with them or a group of them, you get them together and say, here's what is being offered. Here are the implications. Please bear this in mind. Please bear that in mind. Do you really want me to go down this road? I'm struggling with this. I don't really want to be in this, but if you are instructing me to do that, I will have to abide by that. And if we and we're just talking about the question of whether we join a government, which we're getting hate ourselves, as Sabrina says.
Yes.
But going down the road, whether I were to be a part of a government or sitting on a backbench, government backbench, or sitting in the opposition ranks, what I will endeavor to do throughout my term would be to keep my people fully informed, and that is to give them advice. And there are many things I can advise them on, because that's what I've been doing all my adult life, advising folks, a wide cross-section of folks in Cayman. I can go back to them. Sabrina's in the same business, albeit with regards to immigration and related issues. We have a skill set that we can deploy, and we can take advice where there is any sort of things that are not in our wheelhouse. We can go and consult ourselves with trusted advisors, go to our people, say, this is what it is. These are the implications of what is being proposed. What do you wish for me to do with regards to this? And here is what I would prefer to do, but I'm always subject to your instructions. If we have that sort of consultative process, because look, as Robert Sir said, the secret of freedom lies in educating the public, and the secret of tyranny lies in keeping them ignorant. I believe the latter is sort of deployed is currently deployed by the government. You keep the folks, ignorant, and that theme resonates through everything they're doing. They sign huge contractual arrangements with special interest groups. They refuse to disclose them. We get studies commissioned that we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars for on important issues like immigration. We tell the public, oh, you can't see it, it's privileged. Well, how is that even possible? But what we see is a recurrent theme of us being given the mushroom treatment, right? And the people of this country deserves better. That is not representation. That is a dictatorship of sorts. That is a group of people coming together, fooling an electorate, getting themselves elected, and then commencing on their own mission for their own objectives based on their agendas and the agendas of those who sponsor them and support them. And I'm not going to be part of that. I have represented all sorts of people. I keep hearing stories about, oh, well, what is he? Is he for the development group? There is no development group. And I take my job seriously. I always have. I believe Sabrina is in the same, takes the same position.
And
we
to
are going to do what
Exactly.
And to be very
now, Sandra,
yes.
When you look at the power in the people and talking about whether or not, you're elected and being a part of the government, if I haven't shown what we're capable of doing as a regular member in society, with the works that have been spearheaded by myself and under my leadership with the Prospect Red Bay Community Group, it proves I don't have to be a part of government in order to make an effective change in my community that is then benefited and shared on with the entire island. When you look at what we have done just as regular citizens and residents of the Red Bay community over the past almost a decade, that speaks volumes. So to state that I would not be affected, even not being a part of a government, I think is measured only by the proven track record that I've done with somebody not being elected into office.
Yes, absolutely. And Sammy, Kenneth says Sammy's response is on point. Shane joins in. Shane Edwards, big shout out to Shane from East End. Sammy, you could not have said it any better. And Anne says, too bad Sammy is not running in West Bay. It looks like Anne is looking for some choices in her respective constituency. I don't know what part of West Bay she's in. But, one of the things, and you guys are absolutely right, this is a hypothetical question. But having said that, we all know through this platform that it is a hypothetical question that the candidates themselves are also very, very concerned about. And that is why independents are in the background meeting. They are having discussions with each other to say, hey, if this scenario happens, yes, it's a hypothetical. We don't know. No one can say with certainty who's going to be getting in. But if this scenario happens, who are you willing to work with? Who are you willing to align with? Those conversations are ongoing, folks, and they're very much happening. And I think the fact that this time the independents are having these discussions quite early in the process, as opposed to waiting until election night, speaks to the fact that they do not want, because they're listening to the people of this country, they do not want a repetition of what has happened this last time, with the PPM being able to form another government of their own and call it a unity government because they were able to pull in a few people. And that's the God honest truth. That's the cold hard truth, folks. And you know that that's how we're going to give it to you. So it's a question that was worth asking because people do want to know. And I thank you both for your responses. So let's just move on. So we have a number of topics, obviously, that we're going to be discussing. Now, folks, I'm very much aware that when people come in the program, I'm always like, Sammy's like, what are we going to be talking about today? And I'll say, oh, yes, Sammy, we're going to cover this. And invariably, he gets in the program and we don't cover any of that stuff. So I feel that, you know, we go with the flow here. We talk about the things that people want to talk about and the questions that are coming up. So Ty says, yep, so true. Thank you, Ty, for that. But one of the things that we will do, folks, to give every single candidate an opportunity is they will be participating in something called Speakeasy, where they will get 10 or 15 minutes to sit down and talk about just education. So you can hear their positions on very specific topics. I don't know if Bruce is listening to the show this morning, but Bruce is always one of those people asking for details. And I think we need to put our candidates to the test in terms of the details of their responses, what they see as the problems, and what detailed solutions or initiative they have in their minds that could be presented as workable solutions. So they will be afforded that opportunity, and we will be feeding those through in our evening segments. That's why we're not doing an evening show right now, so that you will get a chance to see where does Sammy Jackson stand on the cost of living. What is his position on improving the dubious educational system that we have here in the Cayman Islands? I mentioned on, I think it was yesterday's program, that we have police now going to John Gray High School, conducting these missions, checking your students and so forth. And as parents, you've not been informed about this. You're only hearing it because you see the police presence there, or maybe your children are telling you that they're on campus looking for drugs. They're on campus looking for weed brownies, apparently, amongst other things. And the education minister is not saying anything about these operations. As I promised you guys yesterday, I did reach out to the RCAPS and they got back to us in a timely fashion. And they have basically directed me to speak to the ministry. They're just there in a supportive role. So to ask them, why police presence is necessary and what it is that they're doing. We don't have high hopes, as usual, of getting a response from them, but we will certainly ask the question. When it comes to communicating with constituents, and this is a very specific question for both of you, what will be your position? You're here now, you're communicating, both of you are coming on this program. I know Sammy will be coming on the show twice per week, and we love this direct interaction with the voters, but it seems like after people are elected, it all goes to hell in a handbasket, so to speak. So I want to know, Sabrina, you can go first on this one. How will you continue to ensure that you are reaching your constituents even after Election Day, once you become the representative for Prospect? What's your communication plan then?
My communication plan is that I meet quarterly with meetings for the electoral district of Prospect. And of course, with social media platforms, also enhance on that. But I don't want it to be a robotic way of interacting with people. I keep telling my people when I'm out in the community that they're going to be tired of seeing my face. And setting up a constituency office, in all honesty, that is easily identified and accessible, understanding that Prospect is predominantly residential. I'm definitely looking at the Grand Harbor area, and that is something that I should be able to announce in short order, to show that I am committed to having some place that persons can always have access to me. But outside that, I intend to have quarterly town hall style meetings with the people of Prospect and community.
Thank you. Let me just say for the record, I'm trying to cue up one of my little buttons here, but of course it's not participating very well because that computer, there we go. It's a delay because that computer upgrade is now a necessity. But listen, let me address that point of a constituency office because I want to be fair to Austin. Now, over the weekend, I can't read the exact message that he sent me because over the weekend, unfortunately, my WhatsApp got wiped as I was trying to switch phones. But Austin reached out to me, I think, when you guys were on last week and said, it's not fair for me to say that he doesn't have a constituency office. So let me tell you exactly what Austin's position is on this. And I said, oh, you have a constituency office? Because I'm not aware of one. The last I heard, him and Alden were going to combine their resources, which are provided by the government to the tune of $5,000 per month, and get an office in Grand Harbor. I've heard nothing since then, and I've seen no office, and I've heard of no office. He says that he has a home office. Okay. So I said to him in reply to that, okay, you have a home office that is manned by an employee that works there and you have regular office hours and you've announced that you have this home office that people can come and make appointments with you. And he said, no, he didn't do that because it's his home. And then I became woefully confused. And I'm like, what are you talking about? If you're going to have a home office, the concept of an office, a constituency office, is that it is open to the public. You announce that the location, your availability, all of those types of things. So I'm confused as to why you have a home office that then you don't announce that people can come and make appointments and see you and who they should call and how that works. But he did say, well, no one has never not been able to reach me, including yourself. And to be fair to Austin, anytime I message him, I don't know about anybody else, but anytime I message him, he does respond and he gets back to me. But that still isn't a constituency office. So does Austin have a home office? Does Alden have a home office? Perhaps they sit at their computer, occasionally do work. He says, well, you know, I'm in the government building. People can come and see me there. That is still not a constituency office. Now, listen, Sabrina has just made a very valid point. A lot of these districts are mostly residential. So it's not always possible to get a office space directly in your constituency. Take Chris Saunders, for example. There was nothing available in his direct constituency. However, Chris was able to secure something in Countryside. Folks, that's just a block away. I mean, it's not a big deal. Grand Harbor is a block away from Prospect. This whole concept of, oh, we have smaller district and smaller constituencies seems to have some elected officials thinking very, very narrowly. Like, oh, if I can't find commercial space or house to rent directly in the borders of Prospect, heaven forbid across the street, which is Red Bay or Georgetown Central, whatever, I can't get an office there. That doesn't make any sense. The point is the government, previously through cabinet and now through this new parliamentary regime that has been set up, gives you $5,000 a month to go towards the cost of your constituency office. In addition to that, you get to hire the person of your choice. So you can employ a Caymanian, if you wish, into the position of working in your constituency office, and they get the same benefits, a salary, insurance, health benefits, whatever, just like a civil servant. It's a fixed term contract and it expires on election day or whenever you get out of office, sort of thing. So it doesn't make any sense to me why anyone, would be, number one, even setting up a home office. I understand the necessity to have a separate space in your home for just you and your family. I don't believe that, your constituents should be showing up at your door. You mitigate that, folks, by actually having a proper designated and announced home office. So Carol, before we go to the same question for Sammy, Carol says, I don't vote in Sabrina's district, but I have worked with her for 10 years or more with her immigration services company. Sabrina can be abrupt and come across as authoritarian, but her advice is right on the money. If you're looking for a warm and fuzzy person, someone to butter you up and tell you what you want to hear, Sabrina is not going to be your cup of tea. I think Sabrina is an excellent alternative choice, and I wish her the best in her quest to enter the political arena. Sherry Ann says we need community councils. Now, to you, Sammy, the exact same question. Do you remember what it was exactly? I think you do.
Yep. Just to echo what Sabrina said, particularly for me, I don't live in a constituency, so I see a constituency office as an absolute minimum, and staffed by someone during normal business. I was with an emergency number. That's an absolute necessity, and particularly if it's been funded, you have to wonder what happened to the funds. I'll say no more than that, but certainly it needs to happen. It's simply a feature that every constituency should have, and it doesn't need to be. Serena's right in that, and I know a little bit about planning and zoning and stuff. We don't necessarily need to have an office located immediately in the district itself, but it needs to be in the vicinity. Grand Harbor is conveniently located to Red Bay. That would be the obvious choice. So that's a bare minimum. I think that needs to happen. Before that happens, during the run up to the election, what I'm doing is collecting folks' numbers. As you know, I've advertised. I have a dedicated phone with a WhatsApp on it, so that people can contact me to ask me questions about what I stand for, what my position is. Anyone that knows me knows that if they want to know what my position is on anything, they just need to ask. And if I don't know enough about it, I'll say that. I'll say I don't know enough about it. I'll go away and research it, and I'll come back to you. That's how I would intend to run the constituency office. But something that has been a burning desire of mine for a long time before I decided to get into politics is district councils. We absolutely need to have them. They're a feature of the Constitution. We have legislation which I gather is woefully inadequate, cannot work because I believe it calls for, this is something I need to research, an appointment of a district council by cabinet, which obviously doesn't work because it needs to be representative of the district, in my humble opinion. But when you're dealing with a vast, Red Bay has 1,320 voters registered now, and I think Prospect is a similar number, probably even higher.
Yeah.
We need to make sure. There you go. We need to make sure that we have folks on the ground who identify issues. Sometimes folks don't even really know. This is part of this problem of lack of education. They don't even know that they have a solution to a problem. They just see the problem. They don't understand why it exists. They don't know how to fix it. We need, people within the industry in the vicinity who can identify problems, take them back to the representative for necessary action. I believe in that. That is a part of what should have been in Cayman, should have been implemented since the Constitution was enacted in 2009, and we failed miserably. And that is a key part to representative democracy. Without it, I don't know how we're supposed to function. What our Constitution calls for. I mean, I know that Mr. McLaughlin and his government have chosen of late to ignore the Constitution, which he took so much credit for writing. But that's a glaring inadequacy in my view. That needs to be implemented. And it makes a lot of sense because you literally have help. Folks who are helping you to do your job more efficiently. Who wouldn't want that, right? And it's
Sammy,
win-win.
the good thing is you're running in a community, and like myself, who has been active where a community group is concerned. And in all honesty, with all the talks in the last campaign about district councils and how the legislation was written, we had a number of civil servants who play a very active role in the Red Bay Prospect community group that would have been at a disadvantage should that have been put in effect. Those civil servants would not have been able to play a role. So what we did, and we all agreed, that's why we made that group an NPO, so that those persons could effectively still remain active in their community. And should district councils had actually come to the forefront, representation from any community active groups would have been placed on those district councils. So because it was never enacted, there is a very active and vibrant community group that has always had a say within the community of Red Bay and Prospect. And that was long before electoral boundaries even made its way. And that group maintains very active today, which is why, in my humble opinion, the two elected officials have had an easy ride. It's been taken care of by the people. Again, let me repeat, the power is in the people.
Absolutely.
Well, I tell you, sorry guys. I was just going to say we're actually out of time already. I know it's hard to believe because these conversations just keep going, but I'll read a few more comments and then I do have a few remarks coming off of what's up. But what another fantastic show this morning, folks. You've been hearing from Sabrina Turner, candidate for Prospect, and Sammy Jackson, candidate for Red Bay. So one other comment that came in said, remember the pledges of some candidates. I will never join that group. And that is exactly what they did in at the very first day in Parliament. We must have assurances now of their intentions. Another person is inquiring about, will CMR host candidate forums, for example? Will you have Austin and Sabrina on? Now, we had intended, thank you for that really good question, in fact, we had intended to do candidate forums, but with the entire election being cut by 6 weeks, that honestly has cut into our time frame of what we would have rolled out for the candidate forums. So what, as an executive decision, we've decided to do here on Cayman Mall Road is we know that the chamber will be hosting candidate forums. So after giving it some consideration, I did speak with Will Panu on Monday afternoon about this, and he has agreed that he's going to send us their schedule and we will live stream all of their candidate forums. And I think that creates a couple of things. First of all, number one, no one should have any issues attending the forum that the chamber hosts. So they can't say, well, I'm not a CMR supporter or whatever. She leans a certain way politically, because we know I have my personal opinion. I'm definitely share it all the time, especially in this podcast format. So it creates a even battlefield. So no one should feel any way about going to chamber debate. They say that they don't have a political, they're politically neutral, which is correct, right? As a business forum. So I think they will have greater participation. I hope that everyone will participate in their forum. So we're going to basically piggyback off of this election cycle, off of the chamber forum, but we will still be bringing it to you, our viewers, via the live stream. So we will work out the logistics of getting that done. Having said that, for the benefit of your knowledge and understanding, the chamber will not be having their forums this time around in the districts. They're going to have it at their office, and we will be live streaming from that location. So you won't be able to come out and sit down in the audience and listen to these live. Unfortunately, the best that we can do is just feed it through to the live stream. So as soon as we get the schedule of debates, they do start shortly after nomination day. We will make the schedule available to you, and we will definitely be there live streaming that. So that's the first, to address that first point. And then some of your comments that I see coming in. Good morning, Larry. He said he was late this morning. Sue says people need more than just cakes and turkeys. Gay says, why have a constituency office when they're never open? A cell phone is good enough. Well, I think the point of a constituency office, Gay, is to actually have it function as a proper office. And Sharon reminds us that last election, there was a lot of talk about district councils and it never happened. Now, I love Alric because he reminds us of the legal position. And we had gone through this a number of weeks back about all the benefits when we were discussing the fact that sitting MPs now get a 3-month severance pay, whether they run or again, or whether they get elected again or not. They will get a 3-month severance pay if they're not returned to the Legislative Assembly. And Alric reminds us that in that law, there are a number of provisions that allows them to get money. So the constituency allowance covers the cost of facilitating access by constituents, including office rent, utilities, supplies, and maintenance. The amount is $5,000 per month per elected members of the Legislative Assembly. So I have a question about that. People who are using their home office and they're still getting that $5,000 a month, they obviously don't have rent. Are they using that to pay a mortgage? Like, what exactly is that being used for? I don't know. It's a question. Alric also says that executive allowance for the premier He receives an executive allowance of $5,000 per month. So I think that's in addition to his constituency allowance. He gets an extra because he is the premier. Correct me if I'm wrong, Alric, Sammy, if you know any differently. Alric also says the executive allowance for the leader of the opposition shall receive an allowance of $3,500 per month. Kenneth says that he's tried to get district councils active and up and running, but the current government does not want it working as it gives the people back the power.
There you go.
Alwick also says that the allowance for Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, two components to their allowance because they get the usual constituency allowance of $5,000 per month for an office. And they also, in addition to that, get an accommodation fee of $2,500 per month and a transportation fee of another $2,500 per month. So basically $10,000 per month. I still do not think that's necessary. We all know that Mr. Moses Kirkernel has an apartment here that he owns and, whatever. I don't know if Juliana has an apartment here, but I mean, by now, surely they have property in both Grand Cayman and Little Cayman in which they can stay. Is it necessary? And they have vehicles here that they own. Is it necessary to give them a transportation allowance of $2,500 a month? What would you be using that for? You can get a rental for definitely half that price. I mean, I think we need to look at some of these things that are causing this country to hemorrhage financially. So Kenneth says the government agreed to my motion to have a select committee to reform the law so that we can get it going, but then the government refused to get the select committee approved. Again, playing games. That's what that's all about. And I remember that, Kenneth, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember Alden pulling you in when you brought it up in the Legislative Assembly, trying to be an effective backbencher because it was getting a lot of traction. He pulled you into a private meeting and must have patted you in the back and said, okay, little boy, this is the plan. I'm going to make you a promise that I'm never going to keep, because he had his fingers crossed behind his back. And poor Kenneth believed him. Being, a newcomer to the political arena, he doesn't quite understand Alden and how it works. So he believed him. And now Kenneth is telling us, well, I believed him and here we are. Still no select committee approved. Mark says first time an election has been called early. And the reason is, Mark, remember this morning I said I'm giving up cursing during my show? Don't get me started. The short answer, Mark, is the premier refused to remove Mr. Bush. And so he's calling an early election. That's his response to the whole hoopla about Bush and him assaulting a woman, being convicted, sentenced to jail, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't want to address it. And so the only way he cannot address it is by calling an early election. And trying
it's not important, right?
Sorry?
It's not important.
Yeah, apparently.
To protect Mr. Bush.
To protect him. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jonathan, Ebanks says the question is, what are we the people going to do if we want change? Well, I think you know what you got to do, folks. Sabrina keeps telling you.
Go and vote.
People have the power. April the 14th, go out there and vote for people who will not do what the last bunch did. And that includes forming a similar government. I'm going to be very honest with you. That's why that question was so critical. As Sue says, that's a disgrace about the severance pay. Kenneth says, you're 100% correct, Sandra. I get the benefit, and this is what I love. A lot of people are like, oh, you should be running. No, I shouldn't be running. I am most effective exactly where I am, because I get the benefit, folks, of being able to sit back and objectively make observations in terms of what is happening and then educate you, the people. I mean, there are times when we have to break it down here in this program. Yeah. Because some of these issues are complex and they're not always easy to understand. And sometimes you, the people, don't know what's happening in the background, but I do. I get the inside sauce. And then I can share it with you so that you have a better understanding of what's happening. It's like the whole West Bay situation with Tara, Andre, and Raul. Now, wasn't that an eye-opener to hear that Tara isn't running anymore? She's cutting a sweetheart deal with Walkers, who are going to give her a job. She'll probably make more money doing that than what she's doing now, so she'll be happy. Andre has been allegedly, speculation, not confirmation, also benefiting from a sweetheart deal. Should he not get in from the same company, Walkers will give him a job. In my mind, if a law firm with the kind of power and money that Walkers has is already in negotiations with candidates. If they do get elected, who do you think those candidates are going to be loyal to? I'm just saying.
You got to wonder what the agenda is.
I'm just saying. Exactly. Ty says, a little off topic, but when will we know about who's running against McKeeva Bush? I know that. Let me give you a, hold on now. Hold on. I'm going to tell you the date that you're going to know. The date is going to be, well, I know they're going to be in our program March the 2nd, but let me just confirm when the actual announcement will be dropping. So you will know, I gotta double check my email because I kind of feel like I know this because of an email. March the 2nd, they're going to be on Cayman Mall Road. I think that you may have an indication before then of who is going to be running against Mr. Bush. We know already who it is. But in certain instances, if the person has said because of a job situation, they cannot yet officially make the announcement. And this is a judgment call that I'm going to have to make, to be quite frank. And to be fair, I did it with Deborah Broderick. I mean, I didn't even ask Deborah because she was out there canvassing. This is the difference now. So let me be very clear. She was out there canvassing and telling people that she's running. This person hasn't yet done that. So I will have a word with this individual. But it is coming, Ty. Hold on to your cup of coffee. Celine says, I appreciate all your sharing as this informs us of things that is normally brushed under the mat. And yes, this is important that we do not do this election season. So the cold hard truth is I like Sammy. If I was in Red Bay, I'd be voting for Sammy. I like Sabrina. If I was in Prospect, I'd be voting for Sabrina. That is my personal endorsement. But when I come here in the cold hard truth, I have an obligation to put all guests to the test. That includes Sammy. That includes Kenneth. That includes anybody, regardless of how I feel about them personally, or if I would give them my vote or whatever, because as I think it was Charles said earlier, I am the voice for the people in this community. So it is my responsibility in the context of media and a political podcast to put them to the test. And that will be done here regardless of who they are. It simply does not matter. So thank you so much for that, Celine. I appreciate it. Cameron says the West Bay West candidate is like the second coming. Can't wait. My God. Final words, Sabrina, for this week, and Sammy. And we will definitely be seeing them in a couple of days in any event.
Yes, thank you so much, Sandra, for allowing this forum. In all honesty, I have been, a lot of people have been asking, and I'm sending them to your live streams and definitely to your show. I want to let the public know that last night I had my fourth meeting. My fifth meeting would be a public meeting at Macross. That's on Thursday, the 25th. And that's around 7 o'clock. That's the Macross location on Marina Drive. And I cannot stress enough to people to come out and cast their vote on April 14th. That's the only how you're going to effectively have change. I do not want persons to just be nonchalant. Oh, Sabrina is well known. She's popular. I don't have to go. You have to actually take just a few minutes of your time and go out and cast your vote on election day. Failure to do so, you may actually end up with someone that will not be the person that you want to represent you. When you look at some of the things that are going to be facing us, the hardships that we all continue to face, the uncertainties, and to know more about what role we can play. The only how you can wager your bet and guarantee that you have a stake and a say in the upcoming elections is if you go out and vote. So I cannot stress that enough. Keep informed. My number is 926-8080. Follow me on Facebook. And like I said, the next public meeting is scheduled for Thursday, February 25th, Macross Marina Drive. And I, again, thank you, Sandra, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. I appreciate it. Sammy?
Well, I'd like to echo the sentiments of Sabrina. You have a right to exercise your vote. You should do so. whether you vote for me or whoever you vote for. That is your right, and we as citizens of this country need to exercise our rights and protect our rights always. I look forward to in the coming weeks when I will hopefully get to know a lot more of the folks in Red Bay. I would encourage any of them to reach out to me. The number I have, bear with me because it's a new number, dedicated just for the purpose of the Red Bay electorate. It is 549-6755. We have been distributing business cards with that number on it. Contact me by WhatsApp. Any questions you have. But in any event, I will be holding a number of public meetings. I think the first one is scheduled for the 3rd of March at the Harbour House Marina. I just secured that site yesterday, which is a fantastic site. We'll be setting up and making I'll confirm the date and advertise well in advance so that folks know for sure. But I'm looking forward to engaging and to doing what I can to indicate and confirm to the people of Red Bay that I am a good choice to replace Mr. Alden McLaughlin on the 14th of April. And I will remain committed to them. I promise them that during the next 4 years following that date. I don't intend to just get a job and run away and hide, ignoring them, their needs, etc., and leaving them to rely on the network that Sabrina has quite rightly pointed out that exists. I was actually very impressed with that. But I think it should be it is a wonderful resource to have as a representative, and it's shameful that it hasn't really been implemented and enjoyed and employed in the way it can be, because I think it would benefit the community immensely. There are many needs that the Red Bay community has, and I hope to be able to work with them in over the next 4 years to address those needs as best as is possible in the interest of the people of this country.
Thank you so much, Sammy. We do have some breaking news alerts this morning as well. There is an accident on the Harco bypass with an overturned vehicle. So I'm going to just put that up on our social media site and the website here in a second. Yes, let me just show you guys what that situation looks like. It doesn't look good, to be honest. So that is what we're dealing with. We are hoping that no one is seriously hurt. We just got some video footage of that incident as well. Folks, take your time on the roads. I'm begging you to slow down. You're going nowhere in a hurry, I can assure you. And then on the political front, we've just received some breaking news as well. I tell you what, there's no shortage of news here on FAB Friday. We have just been informed, and I've heard rumblings of this, but a source who is well connected politically has said that McKeeva Bush has decided that he's going to run against Bernie Bush. So what a hot mess. I mean, yikes. That could be a game changer for sure. So his former colleague, he thinks that, he's going to take him out. That is just so weird. So what would happen, from my understanding, again, this has been talked for a little while, McKeeva Bush is going to run against Bernie Bush, and then Ralston is going to flip with him, and Ralston will run in his area against whoever would have been planning to run against Mr. Bush. It's not unheard of. And there are people who are also considering if Alden might decide to flip and run somewhere else, running away from Sammy. We'll have to see. Nothing is concrete until nomination day, folks, because that's when they've got to pay their $1,000, sign on the dotted line, get nominated for a specific district. Damien says, aren't they family? Well, I think everybody in West Bay is family, child. Most of Cayman is family. So that has never stopped on anyone before. Look at North Side. Mrs. Broderick and Ezard are first cousins. You can't get much closer than that unless you're siblings. So, my dear child, Ty says, what a mess. No, this is a hot mess. Cameron says, what excitement. Well, we're here to bring it all to you, folks. It's going to get interesting. Let me take this opportunity to remind you of some really important community events this weekend. It is equally important that you support community initiatives. Of course, Mr. Kenneth is having his Hogsty Bay Fun Day on Sunday from 1 p.m. until 5 p.m. That's February the 21st. Take out the family. They're going to have refreshments. There's tubing. There's bicycle riding off the dock and other things. So we invite you to put that in your calendar so you do not forget that event. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Local food, of course, will be there. And there's also a fundraiser for a young lady who's a toddler on Saturday at the Ed Bush Stadium from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m. that's being put on by Fusion FC. This is one of those football organizations. And the gentleman who's putting this on, let me see if I can get his name. I'll tell you what his name is here in a second. But he's doing a fundraiser, and this young lady has cancer. So this is Mr. Olsen Bush, who's putting on this event. So please go out. They're going to have refreshments for sale, hot dogs, sandwiches, chips, candy, all this stuff. And 100% of the proceeds are going to go to benefit the family of Jalaya Gauntlet, who has been diagnosed recently with cancer. So we want to support her in her efforts. There's been a lot of discussions on different social media platforms that we're not allowing people to post this. The Real Women of Cayman, shame on them, had taken down the post on numerous occasions. We're reaching out to her mom to see if we can get a little bit more information to share with you all, to see how you can best assist this family and to donate. So lots of hot stuff, good folks going on in the political arena. All I can tell you is nothing surprises me anymore, family or not, folks. It is what it is. And yes, I've already put my feelers out in the Savannah situation because I understand there could be another quite shocking entrance into the Savannah race. And I've reached out to that individual for confirmation. Otherwise, they're going to leave us here going speculation, not confirmation. We would rather be able to confirm with you guys exactly what is going on. So that's the word on the street this morning, folks, that Mr. Bush is going to do a switcheroo. And it looks like there's some serious talks or consideration that he might actually switch and run against Bernie Bush. Someone's asking who is running against Kenneth. We don't have any confirmation, but we do know that on the ground canvassing has been Mr. Frank Cornwall. Now, Frank Cornwall is the right-hand man of the premier. He is the premier's political assistant who works in the government building with him, but it's a party affiliation sort of thing. He's been out canvassing in Georgetown Central. He was actually in the BRAC yesterday as well. He went down on the flight and he was in the BRAC yesterday. So that's the only person that we've heard for Georgetown Central thus far. So we will keep you guys abreast of all of the official election news, unofficial news, mall road rumors, so whatever we can get our hands on, folks. We will certainly let you know as soon as we find out. Yeah. All right, folks. Thanks once again to the lovely Sabrina Turner, to Sammy Jackson for joining us this morning. Always a great conversation with these two. After every single show, you guys are messaging me saying what a wonderful time you had listening to the program. We love that you're enjoying it. Cameron, we will definitely keep you posted. We are definitely your election headquarters, folks. Damien is saying that shows his real character, will do anything to be in power. Well, if you didn't know that already, now you know. Folks, have a safe weekend. Again, there's that accident on the Hartwell on the Esterly Tibbetts Highway. Take your time, drive slowly, try to follow the road rules as best you can. It makes the road safe for all of us, and just have a beautiful weekend. We'll see you guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Sonia. Have a good weekend.
Thanks.
Likewise.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Cold Hard Truth. Make sure to check Facebook for showtimes and more information and the latest news at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Subscribe to our IG and Facebook pages to get the latest happenings.